What does it mean for women to truly invest in each other? How do we not only push ourselves toward success, but also empower others to succeed as well? Today on The Balanced Voice, we discuss the role of women in entrepreneurship and the challenges women face in this space.
Women have founded, call it 40 to 50% of businesses in the US. So that's good, go women.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But then when you look at the funding side of it, that's where the numbers get abysmal. And women started businesses got less than 3% of all dollars invested, so the problem is huge. So why, if they're starting almost half of the businesses, why are they getting half the funding? And so that's the gap that I'm more concerned with, because obviously we all know, money is power in a lot of ways. And so how do we get more dollars in the hands of those female founders?
That's Carrie Colbert. Carrie's the founding and general partner at Curate Capital and a local Houston influencer. After a 17-year career in the energy industry, Carrie left the corporate world to pursue her passion of creative pursuit and business decision-making. She now invests in female entrepreneurs and female-driven companies by providing capital, mentorship, and more. In today's balanced conversation, we talk about the need for young women to pursue female mentorship. And ultimately, we answer this question: how do we eliminate the scarcity mentality and equip women to succeed in all aspects of their lives? Without further ado, here's your host, Renia Mancarios.
Welcome to the Balanced Voice podcast. We are so excited to talk to today's guest, Carrie Colbert. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rania. I'm so glad to be here.
You are, in full disclosure, when we decided we were launching this podcast, and there were so many different places and things we wanted to do with it, you were one of the people I quickly identified as a guest that we wanted to have on, because your background is so interesting and what you do is so interesting. And it, people think Crime Stoppers and then what you're doing, is there a connection? But for me, you're empowering women to do what they really want to do. And I love that. So let me just read a little bit about you, because there's too much for me to fully read, but
You're too kind.
2 decades in the energy industry, 5 years of investing in female founders with your own personal capital. Carrie Colbert launched Curate Capital in 2020 to empower female founders to accelerate their paths to success. Every day, she is championing businesses by women for women through the injection of both capital and advisory services. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Carrie, let's start by talking a little bit about you. You grew up in the Texas Panhandle in a small town, and you really, through hard work and mentors and a few other things, kind of hit it big. And I know that's a weird way to put it, but ready to retire at 37. That's amazing. Talk to us about your journey to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I never thought I'd be where I am today. And quite frankly, never set out to run a venture capital firm. That was never on my list of, things I wanted to accomplish. And so it's really an interesting story. One of many pivots, one of many twists and turns. And, I think when I was younger, I was very black and white with how I viewed the world, and, hard work. Put in hard work and outcome success. And it's just going to be the straight linear path. The engineering side of me likes things to be, equations and simple math and the straight lines and all that. But truly, life has taken a lot of twists and turns I didn't expect, but all for the best. And so I was from a small town, always did well in school. Thankfully had someone in the town, I think he was probably the only engineer in the town, encouraged me to get into engineering. One, I got a lot of scholarships there. And two, when you're good at math and science, that's what people kind of tell you to do. But I certainly don't come from any sort of affluent background. My parents didn't go to college. And so I was really, taking pragmatic paths in life early on. So whether that was to study engineering, moved to Houston for the petroleum engineering job after graduation, and so on and so forth. My decisions were very realistic and pragmatic in nature. Along the way of working at oil and gas, about 5 years into my career, I was fortunate to be recruited to a local privately held company. You probably wouldn't know the name. It's always voted one of the best places to work in America and all that. But it's privately held, so you don't see it in the news or anything. But the company was run very entrepreneurially, and I had the great opportunity of being a part of the leadership team there, where one of our core tenets or core values was ownership, and I really saw how having a piece of ownership in the company, aligned everyone really well across the organization, and really it allowed some of us to have kind of life-changing opportunities. We made some pretty significant transactions while I was there, and it allowed me the freedom that I had to step away and figure out what was next. I'll forever be grateful for that period of life, but truly, I wasn't passionate about oil and gas necessarily. Like I said, it was just always kind of a pragmatic choice, and so I decided to step away and figure out, like, what does motivate me? What am I passionate about? Where does that coincide with, making money, and doing business? And so that, was kind of where I was about 5 years ago. And I started a blog at Instagram, more just, as a fun creative outlet, but also to learn about, the burgeoning influencer arena, and how people were utilizing social media to build businesses and so forth. So it wasn't ever being a blogger or influencer as the be all end all, but it was more so to kind of learn about this new playing field, if you will. And so along the way, I was really privileged to connect with some founders on Instagram. Side note, if you think networking means going to cocktail parties or connecting with people on LinkedIn, you're wrong. You can make incredible professional connections on any social media platform. Instagram is happens to be the one where I'm most present, but truly I've connected with these really incredible women. And so most of my investments have been born out of relationships that developed over time. And so, for instance, Jordan Jones, who's the founder of Packed Party in Austin, she was facing some turning points in her business, and she was in her early 20s, and didn't necessarily have a financial background or business background, but she was onto something really great creatively. And so she asked me when I was going to Austin for a trip for an advisory board meeting at UT, she said, can we get together for coffee and chat? And we did. And, certainly, that planted a seed, but she was in no way looking for investors at that point. But by just continuing the conversation over time and building that trust and rapport, when she was ready for an investor, she came to me. And so that's one example, but it really bears out kind of the path that we've been on. I have never had to search for deals to invest in, but rather they come out of these relationships that I've built with founders, whether online or through attending and speaking at conferences, or just introductions that we've had. But it's been really amazing to see how much some of the business lessons I learned in a completely different industry can really help speed up the track to success, if you will.
I'm curious, Carrie, you were in the engineering field. You went on and got an MBA. You had a mentor that helped you when you were at the tech growing up at the Texas Panhandle. But did you ever, at one point, you're 37, you have the ability to retire, you're on Instagram in the very early years of Instagram, by the way, which is so amazing. And you're seeing that you're able to connect to all these women. But was there a point where you realized that you personally hadn't had a lot of female mentors, where you said, there's an aha moment here, there aren't enough female mentors? And there's two other words I want to introduce in the conversation: founders and investors, because that's something you're really bringing light on. There just weren't enough of these in the marketplace.
That's a good point. When I think of, kind of who's helped me get to where I am today, I think of it as kind of a personal board of directors, if you will.
Yeah. I love that you say that. I read that you said that, and I think it's such an awesome statement. Your personal board of directors. It's so, so awesome.
I truly have thought about it fairly intentionally, and tried to get, experts, if you will, in different verticals that I think I need help with, right? Whether that's, kind of a spiritual mentor, maybe that's a investing mentor, maybe that's I don't know, someone who's really good at networking, whatever. We need to know our blind spots so that we can fill those in. It's sometimes more important to know what you don't know than what you do know, and then surround yourself with wise counsel. Now, back to the question. Yeah. And so as I think of that board of directors, you're right. There aren't many females that were filling those roles for me. And so, yeah, that really got me to thinking about my next path. And, it kind of goes back to this whole notion of, what do they call it? Like the old boys club or whatever, or boys network. And that's really something that women haven't necessarily had. And we won't get into why or the backdrop of, where that comes from. But yes, it was cool to see that if we just talked, if we just exchanged expertise, if I just shared with you what I knew, I could save you a lot of headache and heartache. There's no need to repeat mistakes. I've certainly made plenty myself, and hopefully done some things right in the process too. But yeah, why not impart that wisdom to someone else and save them, having to go through those same, trial and error sort of motions themselves.
This balanced conversation is made possible by Brigitte and Bashar Kalai, Hallie Vanderheider, Sippy and AJ Karana, and Deepwater Productions. If you're interested in furthering our mission of facilitating balanced conversations, offering real solutions, contact us at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com.
So you're very in tune, and you recently shared with me an article that you wrote, and I loved the fact that they kept asking you about female founders, and you kept responding by saying the issue is female investors. But let's talk with the notion of female founders. And I think it's important. Our organization is very, very active in schools. We talk to kids in kindergarten through 12th grade, and then certainly in college and beyond in the community. And we see so many different kids with so many different interests. We see so many kids online who wish to monetize what they're doing. And really, they're very talented. They're very aspirational. They're entrepreneurs in spirit, but there aren't very clear-cut paths for a lot of young women and women in general. But what I thought was interesting is you've been so good at dissecting the difference between a female founder and the role of an investor. And in reading some of the articles, there was one that said there are only about 20% of companies that have been founded by females. You went back and said, well, there could be actually 40%, but a lot of those include male founders as well. If you look at companies solely founded by female, that number drops to 3%. Did I read that correctly? Did I understand the numbers right?
It's a little different than that. So, yeah, it is. The numbers are in terms of how much venture capital the women got. So if you look at any reports, women have founded, call it 40 to 50% of businesses in the US. That's every year. That's kind of the stat, 40 to 45, almost, approaching 50. So let's round up and we can call it, that women start almost half of the businesses in America. So that's good. Go women.
But then, fantastic.
Yeah. So, but then when you look at the funding side of it, that's where the numbers get abysmal. And women started businesses got less than 3% of all dollars invested. Last year, it actually dipped. It depends on which report you look at, but some show it as low as 2.2% last year. So the problem is huge. So why, if they're starting almost half of the businesses, why are they getting half the funding? And so that's the gap that I'm more concerned with, because obviously we all know, money is power in a lot of ways. And so how do we get more dollars in the hands of those female founders to really grow their businesses? Because that's what's happening, right? Is that while we're starting the same amount, there's also a study that shows that women-founded businesses outperform their male-founded counterparts, but yet they're just not equipped for that growth. And so that's what, I'm interested in, is how do we help them grow?
Later on in the article, I think you talk about, not all money is good money, and the value of having money plus mentorship. But I want to go back to the point you just made. Why is it that women-owned companies aren't receiving more of the share? Is it because men drive the investment plan and they don't trust the female founders? Is it the female founders are too busy, being moms and business owners, and they're juggling too much to also stop and figure out how to infuse their businesses with capital? A mix of both? None of the
Yeah,
above?
a lot of that, right? All of that. And, I would say primarily what I think about is the implicit biases we all have, right? We all, whether we know it or admit to it or like it, um, we all gravitate towards things that are like us, right? That's, I believe, the affinity bias. And so if I'm a white male guy going into a boardroom, I'm gonna jive, if you will, with my, male counterpart a lot better than I might, this woman telling me about her business is going to revolutionize some breastfeeding product. I made that up. I don't know any business off the top of my mind, but that's just one example. He may not understand. He may not resonate with her as much personally, and he might not understand her business, right? But that could be, a multiple, tens of $1 million idea, but he doesn't get it because he's not been there in the trenches as a mother, going through whatever problem she's trying to solve. So understanding, the founder, understanding her business, and then understanding, her customer is really where I can help bring value to the table. And so some of these founders that we work for or work with for whatever that we partner with, they're already rock stars on their own, but they need someone to come alongside them who gets it, who gets them and what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish through their products and their business.
I'm sitting here thinking of conversations I have. I have 3 daughters, and we love watching Shark Tank. And so
I
when
do too.
somebody, we love it. And when somebody comes in the room, they're so quick to say, I think Barbara's going to make it. Barbara's going to invest, Barbara. And I say, well, why? And they say, well, because 1, it was a woman business owner. 2, the guys didn't seem to get what she was talking. And these are young girls. But when you talk about implicit biases, that's a very real thing. And it may not come from a bad place. It's just inherent in the way we operate and do things. So what you're doing through Curate is trying to infuse smart funding into these women-owned businesses that have the plan, the potential, the ability to thrive, but don't have the opportunity to reach these investments elsewhere.
Absolutely. And so, not only do the investors perhaps have biases, but also some of these founders may not know or have any interest in kind of pursuing traditional investment, firms. That just might not appeal to them. And so there's a host of reasons why that funding connection isn't happening. But I also want to be clear that this is in no way a charity or, a handout or anything. No, quite the contrary. The reason I'm doing it is also because it just makes good business sense. These companies are outperforming any other investment I know out there right now. So, I think of it in terms of an opportunity arbitrage, right? Hopefully this discrepancy in funding is not going to last forever. But while it does, if you have access to these deals, take advantage of it because, there are exciting things going on that, so many people don't even know about because they, they're not plugged into that marketplace. But I am, and I'm seeing what these women are doing, and it's really inspiring.
I love what you wrote, why women are a good investment. And this is taking from the article that you shared with me. 1, they are great communicators. 2, they are less ego driven. They are more relationally driven. They embrace empathy and vulnerability more readily. And they are skilled multitaskers. And that is absolutely true on every count.
I think that's one reason we've seen women really shine over the last year. I mean, it's of course been a difficult time, but yet you see so many women really rising to the occasion. And that's, I know the labor statistic numbers have been horrible for women who have had to drop out of the workforce, whether due to layoffs or family constraints with everything going on. But we're also seeing, amazing women able to re-enter the workforce on their terms, whether it's starting their own business or, joining some sort of company that does offer that flexibility that we all really need, not just want, but need at this point to work from home, flexible with the kids, all that sort of stuff. So, I think coming out of this, women are emerging, stronger than ever in the business realm and really going to thrive as they've pivoted as needed to kind of meet their own needs, but also solve business problems out there.
I'm curious in your work and as you work with women, have you noticed that women run a higher risk of potentially being taken advantage of or facing some type of fraud or, things you may not see men having to face as much? And I know that you and I haven't discussed this beforehand, but I was just curious as you were talking, do women, are they more vulnerable in the workplace in terms of bad business deals and things like that?
Yes, certainly. Again, it comes back to I don't think that we've traditionally exchanged knowledge very well. And I don't know if it's from an idea of scarcity, like, I've got to protect what I know because that's my power. But the more freely we can share information, the more that benefits all of us in the long run. Because, if this founder over here doesn't know what is typical for terms of an agreement when you're looking at an investment deal, she doesn't know when to push back on her counterparts. And so, yeah, I mean, there is opportunity where, particularly if you're dealing with kind of big institutional money, investment firms, they could certainly take a bit of a predatorial stance. And so that's why it really does matter where you're getting your money, because not all investors are created equal, and certainly not all not everyone in business will have your best interest at heart. And so again, it goes back to knowing what you don't know, is very important sometimes. And so if you don't understand these term sheets or letter of intents or whatever agreements you're signing, be sure to surround yourself with someone who can, because you indeed can be taken advantage of in those situations.
Fight for Us is a female-founded organization with a mission to help stop child and youth sex trafficking and fight to keep our children safe. As part of the 87th Texas legislative session, Fight for Us will travel to Austin on Friday, April 9th to testify in favor of the Texas SMART Act. The SMART Act prohibits any sexually oriented business from employing or entering a contract of employment with an individual younger than 21 years of age. If you'd like to get involved with this piece of legislation or any of the work of Fight for Us, you can email them at fightforus.org@gmail.com or find them at fightforus.org.
I love, Carrie, that you've talked a lot about women as consumers. 80% of consumer spending is driven by women. You talk about the rise of the female economy, one of the biggest factors in reshaping our economy. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in case your listeners aren't familiar, everything says that women control like 80% of the dollars spent in this country.
And who's going to argue that at this point? Does anybody argue that?
Exactly. And we can make the case that it's probably even more after 2020. But, indeed, that is a big trend. So I think, kind of the women driving our economy, both from a business standpoint, a consumer standpoint, an investment standpoint, we're going to see that trend really emerging. So, along with technology, I think those two transformations are going to be some of the main ones that transform our economy over the next decades. And where I see that really mattering is some of the old school large companies you might think of. They're having to look around and go, oh no, we haven't spent much time getting to know this demographic, women on a broad level, or, maybe more specifically, millennial female customers and, what have you. And so they're coming along after, our investments in some of these companies that do have a good handle on that demographic, and they're willing to pay a premium to get those companies and get those customers.
Yeah, because that's an interesting point. Oh, yes, I think women do drive the market. I think that's clear. But I haven't heard of a lot of conversation about the young shoppers in the home. I mean, there are many homes, and I know a lot of them where there are 11-year-olds, 10. I mean, it sounds young, but really it's actually not. Right. 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds that have their parents' credit cards on their phone, can add to the family Amazon account and check out, or can buy something at an online store, and it's not that big of a deal for these families. So where do those young girls fall into this? And beyond that, what is the responsibility of these companies who maybe have recognized that they're young consumers and are pushing the envelope and how they advertise to them to try to gain their dollars. I mean, we have to balance the responsibility with the dollar.
Absolutely. And first of all, I'll say that as a mom of an almost 4-year-old, you're scaring me. I haven't yet entered that phase where she can add things to the cart. So this is a new concept for me.
You're going to turn around and she's going to be like, Mom, I have DoorDash, Instacart, Amazon on its way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think with that ability to market to those kids comes great responsibility. I do think that, again, companies that are able to capture that demographic in a responsible way are really going to succeed during these times, right? And so I can give you one example of a company that I've invested in Austin called Packed Party. I think I may have mentioned it earlier, actually. Jordan was my first founder that I invested in. And so what she has done so wonderfully is craft just a really nice community of, I'll use the term millennial women. I don't know exactly, how young or whatever, but let's just say young millennial women who follow her, almost like rabid fans, follow the company, I should say. And anytime Packed Party, puts out new products, those women are ready to buy those, right away. And so she's created a very engaged, loyal following. And in fact, last fall of 2019, she had the idea to take the show on the road, so to speak, and bought a little trailer, turned it into a mini store, and took that trailer on a road trip through some of the college football hotspots in the South, Ole Miss, Texas, all those sorts of schools, part near the sororities and fraternities, and just made a big party of it all, right? And so she knows where those people are and how to market to them and how to sell to them. And we saw that pay off when last year Walmart approached us and we were able to launch an exclusive line within Walmart. And so these are just lifestyle gifting products, party products. It's nothing revolutionary, but she has that brand and she's captured the attention of that demographic in such a way that Walmart wanted to move forward. And we were actually their first non-celebrity branded line within the store. So a real win there.
That's enormous when you think of the buying capacity of a Walmart and how her brand will explode. And I mean, it's amazing what you are able to do for creative women who want their businesses to succeed. Our podcast is all about balance, and you are a mom of two. You actually have not so much a newborn anymore, but a young baby at home.
Yes.
And a 4-year-old.
Yes.
I think it's so interesting, Carrie, how you talk about how you stumbled upon, you chose engineering so strategically. You went to UT, you knew exactly, how to outline your path. You decided to do your MBA. You worked, it was so strategic, but then life has taught you the value of pivot. And you've talked to us about it and you've talked about it in other interviews. Now you're a mom of two, so busy. How do you balance all that you do when things are just not as easy to control anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I don't know that I do balance things very well. I think the idea of balance is somewhat of a falsity. But we certainly, I think some of the best things in my life have been the ones that I haven't planned, right? Whether it's where I am now professionally or having kids, that was not planned. And yeah, so I'm sitting here at age 40, I'll be 44 next month. And I have an almost
happy early birthday.
Thank you. I have an almost 4-year-old and a newborn. He was born on New Year's Eve. And so, yeah, certainly life looks very different than I would have plotted out, but even better in many ways than I could have done so. And, I will say that it takes a lot of support. So, whether it's a team professionally, like I was commenting earlier, what a great team you have helping you on the podcast. or a, help at home. And I have help with the kids. It's someone that we trust and know and love who's able to, help us with the kids during the day. But I also think that I just became more intentional with where I spend my time. I have to think of it as an investment, if you will. How I spend every hour, where I spend it and allocate it is important because those hours are limited. Certainly, I only have a set amount of time to work, and then it's back on mom duty, which I love, but I have to be very productive and intentional with the hours in the workday.
And it can be done, and you do it beautifully. You are, in addition to what you're doing through Curate Capital, you are also a social media influencer. Your Instagram page has an enormous following, and you've captured your brand so beautifully. There will be moments when you share your children and what you do, and you do it so smartly. There's a whole generation of young adults who just wake up every day and think, how do I go viral? They wake up every day and say, how do I gain these eyes and these views and these likes and these follows? As somebody who's succeeded in that, and I think has done it in such a consistently kind manner, what is your advice to this next generation of kids who really, to be seen, have to push the envelope?
Yeah, that makes me cringe, to be honest. That makes me think of a larger issue, and that is not only people wanting to be social media stars, but young people wanting to be entrepreneurs right out of the gate. I think there's something to be said for creating a life of value. And so, kind of paying your dues by working a corporate job is not a bad thing. I mean, and think of it as training for your life, paid training where you're getting paid to.
But Carrie, I don't mean to interrupt you, but because I think you're right. And I think that's what you and I did. When I got to Crime Stoppers, I was an intern, and I didn't care that I was an attorney with a master's degree. I wanted to be at Crime Stoppers. And I said, I'll take the internship. That's fine. $10 an hour. My husband nearly fainted when I told him. But this new generation, if they can figure out how to trend or go viral, they start making money right away. And they almost feel like they don't need any other training.
I know. And again, you're making me nervous as a mother. I in some ways don't know what to say because I have been called an influencer myself. I shy away from, this influencer culture of, everyone's trying to make a quick buck. Everyone's trying to sell something. Everyone's trying to go viral. I think it's much more interesting to be a person who's doing something interesting already and then show that, what I'm saying, whether that's being a mom or whether that's running a venture capital firm or whatever. Like, I think it's way more interesting to watch someone who's got a purpose and a passion and they're just sharing what they're doing along the way than someone who's just their whole life is built off of watch me and look at me sort of culture. So
because that dies down at some point. I mean, that it
does. And you've got to have some underlying some underlying skill or value to add to build a career and just to be a good member of society, So yeah, I get it why it's attractive to the young people, but it's very disheartening because, so much of that is superficial and not necessarily long lasting.
Carrie Colbert, you are a joy to talk to, definitely a joy to follow. You are so inspirational. I love your quote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." It's one of your favorite quotes, and you talk about it. And I think you live that way. And we appreciate you taking the time to be on the Balanced Voice podcast and for all you're doing for women-owned companies. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. The honor is mine. Thank you for all you're doing to make the world a better place and letting me be a small part of it.
No, it's our pleasure. And to everybody else, thank you for joining us on the Balanced Voice podcast. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Runya's work by following her at The Runya Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.